Imagine a family dinner where the silence is so heavy it feels like a physical presence. On one side, a Gen X father sits like a fortress, his face an unreadable mask of stoic calm. On the other, his Gen Z daughter is filming a video, tears streaming as she explains her childhood emotional neglect to thousands of strangers online. Why does one generation find safety in burying their pain, while the other finds healing in exposing it? Is the father truly cold, or is he a master of a survival language his daughter will never speak? And is the daughter truly fragile, or is she breaking a cycle of silence that has haunted their bloodline for decades? There is a hidden cost to both the fortress and the broadcast. But here is the part that will haunt you. They are often mourning the exact same thing, just in two different languages. Let's decode the frequency of this generational silence. We often label Gen X as the Iron Generation, stoic, unshakable, and perhaps a bit cold. In contrast, Gen Z is frequently dismissed as the snowflake generation, fragile, oversharing, and emotionally volatile. But these labels are not just oversimplified, they are fundamentally wrong. This tension isn't about strength versus weakness. It's about a profound shift in survival strategies. According to a 2023 Pew Research report, while Gen Z is significantly more likely to report poor mental health, they are also 60% more likely to seek professional help than their predecessors. This isn't fragility. It's a conscious rejection of the suffer in silence mandate that defined the 20th century. Research by Dr. Jean Twenge, 2017, suggests that the rise of digital connectivity has fundamentally altered how emotions are processed, moving from internal containment to external validation. But here is where it gets complicated. Is the silence of Gen X actually a hidden form of resilience, or a ticking time bomb? And is the noise of Gen Z a breakthrough, or just a new way to stay trapped? To understand this, we must look closer at the specific masks they wear. For Gen X, silence isn't just a lack of words, it's a structural integrity. Growing up in an era of latchkey kids and minimal supervision, they learned that emotional self-reliance was the only way to survive. To them, displaying pain is often seen as a liability, a crack in the armor that could compromise their role as the stable bridge between the silent generation and the digital age. This creates a paradox. While they are the masters of keeping it together, they often pay the invisible tax of chronic stress and emotional isolation. They don't seek therapy, they work through it. But have you ever wondered if this stoicism is a choice or a prison? This behavior aligns with what Dr. Gabor Mate, 2022, describes as the myth of normal, where suppressing emotions becomes a survival mechanism that eventually compromises long-term health. But if Gen X is the silent fortress, then Gen Z is the open broadcast. If Gen X built a fortress, Gen Z has torn down the walls and replaced them with a glass house. For this generation, silence is no longer a sign of strength. It is a symptom of suppression. They navigate a world where staying silent feels like social extinction. Influenced by the vulnerability paradigm popularized by researchers like Dr. Brené Brown, Gen Z views the public sharing of trauma and neurodivergence as a revolutionary act of authenticity. However, this creates a fascinating paradox. The noise of the digital confessional often leads to a phenomenon called performative vulnerability. Are they truly healing, or are they curating their pain to fit an algorithm? Research from the University of Bath, 2021, suggests that while opening up reduces stigma, the constant externalization of internal struggles can sometimes prevent deep, private integration of the self. And they are speaking louder than ever, but is anyone truly listening, or are they just broadcasting into a void? But here's the unsettling truth we need to confront. While Gen X chokes on their secrets, Gen Z might be drowning in their own transparency. The most painful aspect of this generational divide isn't the lack of love, but the total loss of translation. When a Gen X parent witnesses their Gen Z child's public vulnerability, they don't see healing, they see a dangerous lack of boundaries. To the parent, exposing one's soul to the internet feels like inviting a predator into the home. Conversely, when a Gen Z child looks at their parents' silence, they don't see strength. Hiding behind a wall of "I'm fine" feels like emotional abandonment. This is what sociologists call a relational deadlock. According to the family systems theory developed by Dr. Murray Bowen, when two generations use opposite coping mechanisms, it creates a feedback loop of resentment. The child shouts louder to be seen. The parent withdraws further to stay safe. But here is the question we rarely ask. Is it possible that the parent is silent because they were never given the vocabulary to speak, while the child is noisy because they are terrified of disappearing? But before we judge either side, we must look at the invisible engine driving this conflict, the neurobiology of how their worlds were built. The divide between the silence of Gen X and the noise of Gen Z is not a product of personality, but a byproduct of neurobiology and the environment. Gen X was forged in a world of high autonomy and low digital oversight, a landscape that rewarded internalized resilience. Neurologically, this constant suppression of distress can lead to a thickened prefrontal cortex response, where the brain becomes exceptionally good at shutting down emotional signals to maintain focus on survival. This is often reinforced by intergenerational trauma. As researcher Rachel Yehuda, 2016, noted, the survivors of harsh eras pass down a biological predisposition to be on guard, manifesting as a protective silence. In contrast, Gen Z's noise is a direct response to a hyper-connected, high-uncertainty world. Their brains have been rewired by the attention economy, where emotional externalization is the primary way to seek safety and community. This generation utilizes the social buffer effect, a psychological mechanism where sharing distress with a group significantly lowers cortisol levels. However, because they are the first generation to do this at a global scale, they face a new risk: emotional burnout from constant exposure to the world's collective trauma. But here is the catch. Whether you are hiding behind a wall or shouting from a rooftop, the core human need remains the same. We are all just trying to feel safe in a world that feels increasingly unstable. But what happens when these coping mechanisms become toxic? Before we conclude, we must look at the shadows of these generational scripts. It is crucial to recognize that neither the fortress nor the broadcast is a perfect solution for the human soul. While we've explored these generational archetypes, we must avoid the trap of romanticizing Gen X's stoicism as heroic or dismissing Gen Z's openness as attention-seeking. In reality, these are simply different survival languages born from different eras. Extreme silence can lead to emotional necrosis, while extreme broadcasting can lead to a fragmented sense of self where one's identity depends entirely on external validation. Please note that this analysis is for educational and introspective purposes. It does not replace professional mental health counseling. Everyone's family context is unique, and cultural nuances play a significant role in how these silences are inherited. But if we can stop judging the method, we might finally hear the message. What happens when we finally bridge this gap? Let's find the way home. Ultimately, the silence of Gen X and the noise of Gen Z are not signs of a broken relationship, but of a different architecture of survival. We've explored how one generation built a fortress to protect their stability, while the other built a broadcast to find their community. We've seen that at the heart of both lies a shared human vulnerability, simply expressed through different generational filters. The goal isn't for Gen X to become loud or for Gen Z to become silent, but for both to realize that their coping mechanisms were forged in different fires. By understanding the why behind the mask and the message, we can begin to replace judgment with genuine curiosity. How has this generational gap manifested in your own life? Have you ever felt like you were speaking a language your parents or children couldn't hear? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might be the bridge someone else needs today. Don't forget to subscribe and like if this helped you see the silence a little differently. But our journey through the layers of the human mind doesn't end here. There's a hidden truth waiting in our next analysis.